Hi guys, today I'm going to be trying something new. I'm going to be discussing why the Xbox 360 was successful. Now at first it might seem like the answer is obvious, it's like it's the Xbox 360, of course it's popular, it just is. But unlike a lot of popular systems, the Xbox 360 has a very interesting story to go with it. First, a bit of background information on the Xbox 360. It came out in 2005 and was the first seventh generation system to come out, beating the PS3 and the Wii by over a year. So it also is infamously known as history's least reliable system, as in its failure rate is higher than any other console in the world, with 52% of the original models failing. You know, the original big white ones with the red ring of death. 52% of those failed. That's more than half. I didn't change that until 2010 when they came out with the slim model, which is this one here. So it begs the question, how could something so so prone to failure be successful? Well, the short answer is everybody else mucked up as well. Everyone else mucked up as well. The Xbox 360 is pretty much the modern day PlayStation 1, as in it got successful because everyone else failed in their own special way. In completely different ways from the PlayStation 1 though. Like everyone failed terribly and ended up selling miserably, but this time around everyone failed in a way, but didn't end up selling miserably. In fact, the 360 still came last, just losing to the PS3. Like, very small margin, like less than a million units, so. The 360 was probably successful because, mainly, it could appeal to everyone. The Wii could only really appeal to casual markets. That's what Nintendo was aiming for. They weren't interested in marketing it towards gamers because gamers weren't buying Nintendo products really anymore. They hadn't been supporting the GameCube despite Nintendo trying, and that seemed to get the idea in Nintendo's head that they can't really compete with the other systems anymore, so they're going to go off and do their own thing while the other two fight over which one's basically the better gamer's game console. Which is strange to think about, like a game company deciding to not market towards gamers. But that's what they did, and to be fair, it worked for a while, but then as soon as the Wii U came out, it kind of fell apart. And that'll be an interesting video to make one day. Why the Wii U failed. Maybe next month or something. But the main competitor to the 360 for the whole generation was the PlayStation 3. And it had one of the worst starts any console could ever have. It came out at £550. $600. The 360 was half of that. And the PS3 couldn't really market to casual people because they would be like, well, why would I buy this $600 game console when I can buy this $300 game console that comes with basically the same games? Because that's the thing. The PlayStation 3 is now known for having amazing first-party exclusive titles. But at launch they didn't have them. They weren't ready. So the PlayStation 3 didn't have that amazing selling point yet. And they didn't get it really until 2009 when the Slim came out. And they kind of abandoned that whole $600 model. Which gave the 360 time to market itself to everyone. And it did. And it worked. 360 was pretty much the gamer's console because it had all the multi-platform games that the PS3 had. And because the PS3's design was so complicated, most developers didn't want to work with it. And if they did, they'd put something on it that wasn't as good as the 360 version because the extra effort for the PS3 wasn't worth it at the time because of how few of those units sold there were compared to the 360. Despite that huge failure rate, and despite the fact that Microsoft, this was really their first success in the console market. They had the original Xbox in the 6th generation, along with the Dreamcast, the GameCube, and the PS2. But as we should all know, nothing stands a chance that generation unless you're the PS2. The Xbox came second with 30 million sold, which isn't bad. It's not terrible, especially for a first console. But then you look at the PlayStation 2, which sold 155, and it's kind of easier to see why it's strange to think that their second console, with so much going against it, could succeed. But the Wii and the PS3 had their own problems, which the PS3 did address, but the Wii didn't address. When I was growing up, everyone I knew, pretty much, a lot of people had a Wii, and then moved to the 360. Or they had a Wii and they stuck with the Wii. But most people I knew who were playing video games had a 360 at some point. No one had a PS3. When I said I had a PS3, it's like, you have a PS3? First off, why? Second off, they're expensive because, well, they were. But the slim models were the same price pretty much as the 360. So by the time I got one, they weren't as expensive. They were same price. But everybody had a 360 just because it was kind of the default choice, really, because it didn't have the cost problem and the worst multi-platform title problem that the PlayStation 3 started with. It didn't have the problem of none of the multi-platform games being on it, and the casual market problem that the Wii had, because the Wii seemed to be for children and grandparents and everyone who wasn't a gamer. So it ended up looking exactly like that. Just giving Microsoft a chance to really pick up the pace and really deliver a great console. The Xbox 360 is a great console. It's just, when you look at it, it shouldn't have been successful. But like the PlayStation 1, it was successful because everybody else mucked up. Because the three competitors it had in the 6th generation with the Xbox, Sega had already fallen under. Sony had really mucked up the launch of the PS3. And Nintendo weren't marketing to gamers, so that leaves Microsoft with the 360. And that's what most people went for. I mean, now it's really reliable. It works really well with the slim model, and its controller is still one of the best controllers ever made for most people. It's comfortable. It's pretty much the default design for any controller now. Most third-party controllers will follow the 360 model. And then anybody who plays PC games with a controller will probably use a 360 controller, or maybe an Xbox One controller. But the 360 controller has been praised for how good it is, except for, the D-pad, that sucks. I like the controller, not my favourite, but it's a good controller. And the 360 really just kind of showed everyone that you could technically be successful without having any, real prior success. But unfortunately, success didn't last. Halfway through the 360's life, the whole model of them being for everyone really started to kick in, and they started to market it more towards casuals with things like the Kinect and all their sponsorships with other brands that you would see on the Xbox home menu. Around about the time the PS3 started going exclusive centric, Sony pretty much accepted that they couldn't win the generation, so they were going to try and get as many units sold to get ready for next generation. Microsoft kind of went, we're already winning. The Wii doesn't matter. The PS3 is trailing behind. It will never catch up. We can just relax now and just, not try as hard. So all that game-centric ideas that the Xbox 360 had were kind of lost because Microsoft decided that they didn't really need to do that anymore because they had already won, so they thought. And that idea of not really being a game-centric game console continued on to the Xbox One and almost killed that system before it even came out. The Xbox One has a really strange launch story, probably the second best launch story behind PlayStation 3, probably. Maybe even more interesting, to be fair. But that's how the 360 was successful and then lost in the end, because halfway through the generation there was a management change at Microsoft and it all kind of went downhill. So they started going casual, they started not being bothered about games centric ideas as they had been. And it leads to the 360 sales trailing while the PS3s rose, and it ended up beating the 360 just because, well, kind of arrogance, honestly. That's how the Xbox One. That's the only explanation to the Xbox One's horrible launch design, is arrogance. Because they thought of how well they'd done with the 360. They could do whatever they wanted. Because they probably saw Nintendo as like not a threat, because the Wii U had already been out for a year by the time the Xbox One was coming out, and it wasn't selling too well. And they're probably just thinking, Sony will make the same mistake that they did last time. They'll be like, whoa, PS3 is actually selling, let's do the same thing again. But it didn't. That made Microsoft look really, really, really bad in the eyes of pretty much everyone. Because the PS4 was pretty much the ideal system for everyone, while still being game-centric. But the Xbox One started off as everything you don't want in a game console. Like, Netflix and TV integration come first and the games come ninth. That was the problem that spawned from the second half of the 360's life. But the 360 was successful in general. The Xbox One is nowhere near as successful as the 360, but something interesting about 360 as well is that you might think with how many units it sold, I mean, it sold over 85 million units. You'd think, how much profit did Microsoft make off of that? The answer is none. They made no money off the 360, just like the PS3. Well, the PS3 lost money on every unit sold because of the horrible design. I don't know if it's continued to lose money with the Slim and the Super Slim, but with the Xbox original, there was some some design that cost the company a lot of money, and the Xbox original not being successful put Microsoft in a negative $6 billion place, right? Negative $6 billion on Xbox original. The 360 would have probably fixed that. But then you remember that it had 52% hardware failure rate, and since the problem was on Microsoft's end, they agreed to take the unit back, fix it, and send it back out to you with an extended warranty, which cost a lot of money. $1.3 billion. So now we're sitting at negative $7.3 billion for Xbox brand going into Xbox One. And the Xbox One is not making that money back. So the 360 cost Microsoft $1.3 billion despite being so successful. And that really shows that just because you sell a lot doesn't mean your profit is going to be absurdly high. But 360, a successful console, something you should probably get if you don't have one, although most of you probably do have one, to be fair. It is a great system despite its problems, but if you're going to get one, definitely get the 360S or the 360E, because they work. Don't get the original one. Don't get the 360 Elite, which is just the white one but black. Don't get those ones, they don't work. Unless you're getting them as a collector's piece, don't bother getting them because they don't work. But 360 was really successful. Games are cheap now because the 360's technically still supported, but not really. Like, I mean, it still has online functionality, but it's been discontinued, so now is probably the best time to get one if you don't have one, before they start to skyrocket in value. Because of those 85 million plus units, a lot of them were those original white ones, and a lot of them have just been, tossed out because they don't work. because now Microsoft doesn't. I don't think Microsoft offers that program anymore because they've discontinued the system. So strike sooner rather than later if you want a 360. It was a huge success, not financially, and it kind of led to some problems with the Xbox One. But there's a basic summarization of why the Xbox 360 was so successful. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave comments saying any suggestions you have for future videos, if you have any. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.